The wind howls through the darkness outside your cabin walls. It's 1847, and you're 3 days' ride from the nearest settlement. Your family of 5 huddles together in a single room, 12 by 16 feet of hewn logs standing between you and whatever lurks in the wilderness beyond. There's no sheriff coming if trouble finds you, no neighbors within shouting distance, no electric lights to pierce the blackness. Just you, your family, and the security systems you've built with your own hands to survive another night on the American frontier. What you're about to discover isn't just history. It's a masterclass in protection that kept families alive when failure meant death. These weren't theoretical security measures debated in committee meetings. They were life and death innovations born from necessity, refined through tragedy, and passed down through generations of families who understood that preparation wasn't paranoia, it was survival. So settle in, because we're about to explore the sophisticated defense systems that frontier families developed to protect their most precious assets, their lives and the lives of their children. And I guarantee you'll never look at home security the same way again. By the way, if you're finding value in this deep dive into frontier survival, hit that subscribe button. I'm curious, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your location in the comments. Last week, someone said they were binge watching these videos during their night shift as a security guard. That's dedication. The year is 1845. You're Thomas Mackenzie, a carpenter from Ohio who sold everything to claim 160 acres of prairie land in what would someday become Nebraska. Your wife Sarah is 7 months pregnant with your 4th child. Your oldest boy, Samuel, just turned 14. Your daughter Mary is 11, and little Jacob is barely 8 years old. You've spent the last 6 months building your cabin from scratch, every log cut by hand, every chink sealed with mud and clay, every board shaped with tools you carried in your wagon. The nearest neighbor is 15 miles east, and the closest thing resembling law enforcement is a territorial marshal who might pass through twice a year, if you're lucky. As darkness falls on this October evening, you begin the nightly ritual that could mean the difference between seeing tomorrow's sunrise and becoming another tragic story whispered around distant campfires. First, the door. Not just any door, but a barrier engineered for survival. 3 inches of solid oak planks, cross-braced with iron bands you traded for at the last settlement. The hinges are mounted on the inside, making them impossible to reach from outside, but the real security comes from the barricading system you designed yourself. Heavy wooden brackets, forged by a blacksmith 200 miles away, are mounted on either side of the doorframe. The bar itself, 6 inches thick and cut from the hardest hickory you could find, drops into place with a solid thunk that echoes through the cabin. When that bar is in position, you could put 10 men against your door, and they wouldn't budge it without an axe and 20 minutes of chopping. But you're not done. Behind the door, you position your heavy oak table, legs braced against the floor, not just for extra security, but for noise. Any attempt to force that door will send the table scraping across the wooden floor with a sound that'll wake the dead, and more importantly, wake you. Sarah moves to the windows while you secure the door. There are only 2, both small and positioned high on the walls. Glass was a luxury you couldn't afford, so greased paper serves as your window covering. But when darkness comes, those paper windows get sealed with wooden shutters that would make a fortress proud. Each shutter is constructed from inch-thick planks, fitted so precisely that they overlap when closed. The locking mechanism is simple but effective. Thick wooden bars that slide across the interior of each shutter, holding them firm against the frame. Sarah checks each one methodically, her movements practiced and efficient. She's done this routine 184 times since you arrived at this godforsaken piece of paradise. While Sarah secures the windows, Samuel takes his position by the gun port. Yes, you built a gun port into your cabin. A carefully positioned opening, just large enough for a rifle barrel, that gives you a clear view of the main approach while keeping you protected. Samuel's job is to watch and listen. At 14, his ears are sharper than yours, and his eyes haven't been strained by years of close work. The rifle itself sits loaded and ready. A .45 caliber Pennsylvania long rifle that belonged to your father and his father before him. 42 inches of maple stock and iron barrel that can put a ball through a man's chest at 200 yards. The powder horn hangs beside it, full of fine black powder you made yourself from saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal. Beside that, a pouch of lead balls, each one cast in a mold and sized to fit your rifle's bore exactly. But the rifle isn't your only weapon. A double-barreled shotgun loaded with buckshot leans against the wall near the door. 12 lead balls per barrel, each one the size of your thumb. At close range, it'll stop anything on 2 legs or 4. Your pistol, a single-shot flintlock, stays loaded and within reach at all times. Even little Jacob knows how to prime and fire it if everything else goes wrong. Mary's job is the fire, not just for warmth, though October nights can be bitter on the prairie. The fire is light, and light is security. She keeps the flames low but steady, just bright enough to see movement in the cabin, but not bright enough to make the windows glow like beacons in the darkness. Too much light attracts attention. Too little leaves you blind to what's happening inside your own home. But your most sophisticated security system isn't made of wood or iron. It's lying by the door, ears perked, nose twitching at every scent carried on the wind. Rex, your 3-year-old hound, is worth his weight in ammunition. His hearing can detect footsteps at 300 yards. His nose can distinguish between the familiar scents of your family and the foreign smell of strangers. Rex was trained from puppyhood for this exact purpose, not as a pet, but as an early warning system that never sleeps. He knows the difference between the normal sounds of the night and the whisper of moccasins on grass, between the rustle of wind in the tall prairie grass and the careful movement of something that doesn't belong. Tonight, Rex is restless. His head keeps turning toward the north wall, ears forward, body tense. He's not barking, which means whatever he's sensing isn't close enough to be an immediate threat. But something out there has caught his attention, and Rex doesn't get excited about rabbits or possums. You check your pocket watch by the dim firelight. 9:30. Still early by frontier standards, but full darkness has fallen like a blanket across the endless grassland. This is when the real dangers emerge. This is when families huddled in cabins just like yours discover whether their preparations are sufficient or whether they've made some fatal mistake that will cost them everything. Sarah settles the younger children in their sleeping area, a corner of the cabin partitioned off with hanging blankets, not for privacy, but for protection. If something goes wrong, if the cabin is breached, that corner becomes a final refuge. The walls there are double thick, reinforced with extra logs you salvaged from a lightning-struck tree. Small firing ports cut into the logs allow defensive fire from inside the partition. But you're hoping it never comes to that. Your security isn't just about fighting off attackers. It's about making your cabin such an unattractive target that threats move on to easier prey. The cleared ground around your homestead extends 50 yards in all directions. Anyone approaching has to cross open ground with no cover, fully exposed to rifle fire from your gun ports. The cabin itself sits on a slight rise, giving you a commanding view of the surrounding prairie. You chose this location specifically for its defensive advantages. High ground means you can see threats coming from miles away during daylight, and it forces attackers to approach uphill, slowing them down and tiring them out. Your outbuildings, the small barn and chicken coop, are positioned strategically, close enough to the cabin that you can reach them quickly if needed, but far enough away that they can't be used as cover by anyone trying to approach your home. Every aspect of your homestead layout was planned with security in mind. As the night deepens, you begin the watch rotation that will continue until dawn. You take the first shift, positioning yourself where you can see both the door and the gun port. Sarah will relieve you at midnight. Then Samuel takes over at 3. By sunrise, you'll have maintained constant vigilance for 8 straight hours. This isn't paranoia. This is survival. 3 weeks ago, the Patterson family, 40 miles south, went to sleep without posting a watch. Raiders hit them just before dawn, when sleep is deepest and awareness is lowest. John Patterson and his oldest son died defending their cabin. The raiders took everything of value and left Martha Patterson with 3 young children and no supplies to survive the coming winter. Rex suddenly lifts his head, ears pointed toward the door. A low growl rumbles in his chest, barely audible, but unmistakably threatening. You place your hand on his head, feeling the tension in his muscles. Whatever he senses is getting closer. Moving carefully to avoid creaking floorboards, you position yourself at the gun port. The night outside is pitch black, no moon, heavy clouds blocking even starlight. But your eyes have adjusted to the darkness, and years of frontier living have taught you to see threats in the smallest movements. There, a shadow moving against shadows, roughly 200 yards out. Then another, slightly to the west. Your heart rate quickens, but your hands remain steady. This is what you prepared for. This is why you've spent months building these defenses, why you've drilled your family in emergency procedures, why you've sacrificed comfort and convenience for security. The shadows pause at the edge of your cleared ground. They're studying your cabin, looking for weaknesses, planning their approach. You count at least 3 figures, possibly more. Professional raiders would have studied your homestead during daylight, noting your defenses, your routines, your vulnerabilities. But they're about to discover that the Mackenzie family isn't easy prey. Every security measure you've implemented, every night of vigilant watching, every drill you've conducted with Sarah and the children has led to this moment. Rex's growl intensifies, and you know the shadows have started moving again. You place your hand firmly on Rex's muzzle, a signal you've practiced dozens of times. The dog understands immediately, falling silent while maintaining his alert posture. Any sound now could give away your awareness of the approaching threat, and surprise is one of the few advantages you still hold. Through the gun port, you watch the shadows resolve into human shapes as they cross into the cleared ground around your cabin. 4 men, moving in a coordinated pattern that speaks of military experience or extensive raiding background. They're not desperate drifters or opportunistic thieves. These are professionals who've done this before. The lead figure gestures to the others, and they spread out to surround your cabin. Standard tactics for overwhelming a defensive position. But you built this place specifically to counter such approaches. Every angle is covered by overlapping fields of fire from your multiple gun ports. Every approach requires crossing open ground where movement can be tracked and targeted. Your breathing remains controlled, measured. Years of hunting have taught you to manage the surge of excitement that comes with imminent action. Sarah appears beside you without a sound, the double-barreled shotgun cradled in her arms. She's barefoot, moving across the cabin floor with the practiced silence of a woman who understands that noise means death. Behind the hanging blanket partition, you hear the soft whispers of your children as Mary quietly reassures Jacob and positions him in the safest corner. Samuel has taken his position at the secondary gun port facing east, his young hand steady on the rifle you taught him to shoot when he was 10 years old. The raiders pause again, roughly 50 yards from your door, close enough that you can make out details of their clothing and equipment. They're well armed, each carrying multiple weapons. 2 have rifles, 1 sports a cavalry saber, and the 4th appears to have pistols thrust through his belt. These aren't desperate men driven to crime by starvation. They're predators who've chosen this life. But they're also cautious, which tells you something important. They've encountered prepared resistance before, families who fought back and made them pay for their aggression. Your defensive preparations are already working, forcing them to reconsider their approach instead of simply rushing your door. The psychological warfare begins now. Raiders depend on fear and surprise to overwhelm their victims. A family cowering in darkness, uncertain of the threat level or number of attackers, is easily controlled and robbed. But a family that's alert, prepared, and demonstrably ready to fight presents an entirely different challenge. You make a calculated decision. Time to let them know they've chosen the wrong cabin. Slowly, carefully, you slide your rifle barrel through the gun port until several inches protrude into the night air. The movement is deliberate, visible to anyone watching your cabin. You're not hiding your preparedness anymore. You're advertising it. The effect is immediate. The raiders freeze, and you see two of them gesture toward your gun port. They're reconsidering their approach, weighing the potential rewards against the obvious risks. This is exactly what you want. Every second they spend hesitating is another second for you to assess their capabilities and plan your response. Sarah moves to the window gun port on the cabin's south wall. Her movement is equally deliberate, equally visible. The shotgun barrel slides through the opening with metallic precision that carries clearly in the still night air. Now the raiders know they're facing defensive fire from multiple positions, multiple weapons, multiple trained shooters. The psychological pressure intensifies when Samuel's rifle barrel appears at the east gun port. 3 weapons now visible, 3 separate fields of fire covering every approach to your cabin. The raiders are beginning to understand that this isn't going to be the easy score they anticipated. But you're not done with your demonstration. From inside the cabin, you call out in a voice that carries clearly across the night air. Sarah, check your powder. Samuel, you got a clear shot on the one by the old stump. The words serve multiple purposes. They confirm to the raiders that your family is alert, armed, and coordinated. They suggest you have enough people inside to post multiple guards and maintain conversation. Most importantly, they demonstrate that you're not afraid of this confrontation. Samuel responds immediately, his young voice steady and clear. Yes, sir. Got him sighted. Mary, you ready with the spare loads? Mary's voice joins the conversation from behind the partition. Ready, Papa. Jacob's got the pistol primed, too. Now the raiders are hearing what sounds like an entire family of armed defenders, each with assigned positions and responsibilities. The psychological effect is devastating to their confidence. Instead of surprising a sleeping family, they're facing what appears to be a prepared fortress with multiple shooters and coordinated defensive plans. One of the raiders calls out, his voice attempting bravado but carrying undertones of uncertainty. You folks in there, we're just travelers looking for a warm meal and a place to rest. No need for all them guns. The words confirm what you already suspected. These are experienced raiders who understand the value of deception and negotiation. They're trying to get close enough to overcome your defenses through trickery rather than direct assault. Your response is immediate and uncompromising. Travelers don't move like soldiers in the dark. Travelers don't surround a man's cabin before calling out. You boys best move along while you still can. The finality in your voice carries across the prairie night like a pronouncement of judgment. You're not negotiating. You're not afraid. You're simply stating facts and consequences. But these raiders haven't survived by backing down from resistance. The lead figure gestures again, and 2 of his companions begin moving toward your cabin from different angles. They are committed now, either to success or to finding out just how serious your defensive preparations really are. This is the moment every frontier family dreads and prepares for, when talking fails and violence becomes inevitable, when months of planning and preparation either prove sufficient or prove tragically inadequate, when the security systems you've built with your own hands face their ultimate test. Rex senses the change in atmosphere, his body coiling like a spring ready to release. Sarah's breathing becomes more controlled, more focused. Samuel shifts slightly behind his rifle, finding the perfect position for accurate shooting. Even little Jacob, barely 8 years old, understands that the talking is over. The first raider reaches the corner of your cabin, pressing himself against the log wall where he thinks he's safe from your gun ports. But you anticipated this exact scenario when you designed your defenses. The gun ports aren't just positioned to cover approaches, they're angled to eliminate blind spots and dead zones where attackers might shelter. Sarah has a clear shot at the raider hugging your south wall. Her shotgun, loaded with 12 lead balls per barrel, will turn that corner into a killing zone if the man tries to advance toward your door. The second raider moves toward your north wall, attempting to coordinate his approach with his companion. But Samuel's position covers that angle perfectly, and at 14, the boy has already proven himself an excellent marksman during countless hunting expeditions. The remaining 2 raiders hold back, watching their companions probe your defenses. They're the smart ones, letting others take the risks while they observe your responses and look for weaknesses they can exploit. Your mind races through the tactical situation. 4 armed men against your family's defenses, multiple approaches being attempted simultaneously, professional coordination suggesting military or extensive criminal experience. But you have advantages they can't fully comprehend from outside. You know every inch of the ground around your cabin. You know exactly where your fields of fire overlap and where gaps might exist. You know the capabilities of every weapon in your family's hands and the skill level of each shooter. Most importantly, you're defending your home, your family, your very existence. The raider at your south wall makes his move, sliding along the logs toward your door. Sarah tracks his movement through her gun port, the shotgun barrel adjusting smoothly to maintain target acquisition. At this range, with buckshot, she literally cannot miss. Your finger finds the trigger of your rifle as you track the second raider's advance along the north wall. Samuel mirrors your movement, his rifle trained on the same target from a different angle. If that man continues his approach, he'll face converging fire from 2 directions. The night air crackles with tension as both sides prepare for the violence that seems inevitable. Every second stretches like an hour as you wait to see whether the raiders will press their attack or recognize the futility of their position. Then Rex erupts into motion, his powerful body launching toward the door as his acute hearing detects something your human ears missed. A 5th raider approaching from behind while his companions provided distraction from the front. The battle for your family's survival is about to begin. Rex's warning bark shatters the tense silence as his claws scramble against the wooden door. Your blood runs cold. A 5th man approaching from your blind spot while the others held your attention. This is why professional raiders succeed where amateurs fail. Coordination, distraction, and exploitation of human psychology. But Rex's alert gives you precious seconds to adapt. You spin toward the back wall, abandoning your rifle position to grab the pistol. Sarah maintains her shotgun position, trusting you to handle the rear threat while she covers the primary approaches. Samuel, hold your position, you whisper urgently. Mary, get Jacob to the corner cache now. The corner cache, another layer of your security system that took weeks to construct. Hidden beneath loose floorboards in the cabin's northeast corner lies an emergency kit: water, dried food, ammunition, and most importantly, a second pistol wrapped in oiled cloth. If your cabin falls, if your family is forced to flee into the wilderness, that cache might mean the difference between survival and slow death on the prairie. Through the back wall, you hear the soft scrape of metal against wood. The fifth raider is trying to cut through your chinking, the mud and clay mixture that seals the gaps between logs. It's a smart approach, quieter than trying to force the door or windows, but he's chosen the wrong wall. When you built this cabin, you reinforced the rear wall with double-thick chinking mixed with broken glass and metal fragments. Any attempt to dig through it would take hours and create enough noise to wake the entire territory. But more importantly, you prepared for exactly this scenario. Moving to a concealed panel in the back wall, you slide away a carefully fitted piece of wood to reveal another gun port. This one faces directly down the rear wall of your cabin, providing a lethal field of fire along the entire back face of your home. The raider outside has no idea he's working directly in front of a loaded weapon. You can see him clearly now, silhouetted against the slightly lighter sky. A thin man, probably in his 30s, using a large knife to scrape away your chinking. His concentration is complete, focused entirely on his task. He has no idea death is watching him from 18 inches away. But killing him immediately would alert the other 4 raiders and likely trigger a coordinated assault on your cabin. Instead, you use his presence to your advantage. Placing the pistol barrel against the gun port, you speak in a conversational tone that carries clearly through the night air. "Mister, you're digging in the wrong place. That wall's got enough broken glass mixed in the clay to cut your hands to ribbons. Plus, there's a pistol aimed at your head from about 2 feet away." The scraping stops instantly. You can actually hear the man's sharp intake of breath as he realizes his situation. Through your front gun port, you see the other raiders freeze as they comprehend that their carefully planned assault has been anticipated and countered. "Now here's what's going to happen," you continue, your voice calm but carrying absolute authority. "You're going to set down that knife and walk away from my cabin. Your friends out front are going to do the same. And you're all going to keep walking until you're back wherever you came from." The silence stretches for long seconds. You can feel the raiders weighing their options, considering whether to press the attack or cut their losses. This is the crucial moment in any confrontation. The decision point where violence either escalates or de-escalates based on the perceived balance of power. The raider at your rear wall speaks first, his voice tight with controlled fear. "Mister, we don't want no trouble, just looking for food and maybe a warm place to sleep." "Then you should have approached in daylight with your hands visible," you reply. Men with honest intentions don't surround a family's cabin in the dark. "Now move away from my wall, slow and easy." You hear him comply, his footsteps crunching softly on the frost-covered grass as he backs away from your cabin. Through the front gun port, you watch the other raiders responding to this development. 2 of them begin withdrawing toward the edge of your cleared ground, but the other two hold their positions. These two are the dangerous ones, the leaders who won't accept defeat easily, the men who probably killed before and won't hesitate to kill again if they think they can succeed. Your demonstration of preparedness has eliminated the easy victory they hoped for, but they're calculating whether they can still overwhelm your defenses through sheer aggression. Sarah senses the continuing threat, adjusting her grip on the shotgun. Samuel remains motionless behind his rifle, waiting for your signal. Even Mary and Jacob, hidden behind the partition with the emergency pistol, understand that the danger hasn't passed. One of the remaining raiders calls out, his voice carrying a harder edge than before. "You got the drop on us tonight, friend, but winter's coming, and you can't watch every direction every night. We know where you live now. The threat is clear and professional. If they can't take you tonight, they'll return when conditions are more favorable, when a blizzard masks their approach, when sickness or injury reduces your family's ability to maintain vigilant defense, when desperation makes the risk worthwhile despite your preparations. Your response carries the weight of absolute commitment. Then you better make sure you bring enough men to finish the job. Because if you come back and fail, I'll track you down and kill every one of you." The words aren't bluster or empty threats. They're a promise backed by the same determination that carried you across half a continent to claim this land. The same resolve that drove you to build these defenses and train your family in their use. The same lethal pragmatism that keeps families alive on a frontier where weakness equals death. The psychological warfare intensifies as both sides recognize they're facing opponents who won't back down easily. But you have advantages beyond your defensive preparations. This is your home, your family, your carefully chosen ground. They're operating in unfamiliar territory against unknown capabilities. More importantly, you're fighting for survival, while they're fighting for profit. When the cost becomes too high, raiders move on to easier targets. Families defending their lives will fight until they're all dead. The standoff continues for several more minutes, neither side willing to make the first aggressive move. Then you hear horses neighing softly in the distance. The raiders have mounts waiting beyond your cleared ground, probably held by additional men who haven't revealed themselves yet. This changes the tactical situation significantly. Mounted raiders can strike quickly and retreat before help can arrive. But horses also create vulnerabilities. Animals that must be fed, watered, and rested. Tracks that can be followed. Noise that carries for miles across open prairie. One of the remaining raiders makes his decision. You see him gesture to his companion, and both men begin withdrawing toward the tree line where their horses wait. But their movement is controlled, professional, designed to avoid appearing defeated while acknowledging the current tactical situation. "This ain't over," the leader calls out as they reach the edge of your cleared ground. "See you again soon." Then they're gone, melting into the darkness beyond your defensive perimeter. But you know they're not truly gone. They'll regroup, plan, possibly recruit additional men for a return engagement. Tonight was reconnaissance disguised as an attack. Next time will be the real assault. You maintained your position at the rear gun port for another hour, watching and listening for any sign of continued surveillance. Rex remains alert, but gradually relaxes as the foreign scents fade from the area. Sarah keeps her shotgun ready, while Samuel maintains his watch through the front gun port. Finally, as the first hint of dawn begins to lighten the eastern horizon, you allow yourself to relax slightly. The immediate threat has passed, but the larger danger remains. Those raiders know your location, your family composition, your defensive capabilities. They'll be back with superior numbers and better tactics. "Papa," Samuel whispers from his position, "what do we do now?" It's a good question that goes to the heart of frontier survival. How do you respond when your security systems work perfectly, but the threat remains unresolved? When successfully defending your home only guarantees future attacks by more determined enemies? The answer lies in the broader network of survival systems that frontier families developed beyond their individual cabins. Community cooperation, intelligence sharing, and coordinated response to threats that no single family could handle alone. At first light, you'll ride to the Patterson place, then to the Morrison homestead 12 miles south. Word of last night's encounter must spread quickly through the scattered network of frontier families. Other homesteads need to know that professional raiders are operating in the area. Defensive preparations must be intensified. Watch schedules expanded, emergency signal systems activated. But there's more to do than just warn your neighbors. Those raiders left tracks, clear evidence of their numbers, equipment, and the direction they traveled when they withdrew. In daylight, you'll be able to read those signs like a book, gathering intelligence about their capabilities and likely intentions. The territorial marshal might be 200 miles away, but frontier justice operates by different rules. When professional criminals threaten the survival of entire communities, those communities respond with organized force that makes individual cabin defenses look like children's games. You've heard stories from other territories. Raiders who pushed frontier families too hard, who killed too many settlers, who threatened too many children. The stories always end the same way. Posses of armed settlers tracking the criminals across hundreds of miles of wilderness. Justice dispensed with rope or rifle in whatever location the pursuit finally ends. Sarah approaches your position as full daylight reveals the empty prairie around your cabin. "How many do you think there really were?" she asks quietly. "At least 6, you reply, studying the disturbed ground where the raiders gathered to plan their approach. "Maybe 8, counting the ones holding horses. Professional group, military experience. Probably been working together for months." She nods grimly. "Too many for us to handle if they come back in force." Too many for any single family, you agree, but not too many for the community if we work together. This is the evolution of frontier security beyond individual cabin defenses. The recognition that some threats require collective response, coordinated intelligence, and mutual support that transcends individual homesteads scattered across vast distances. Over breakfast, you explain the situation to your children in terms they can understand without creating paralyzing fear. The bad men who came last night will probably return with friends. Other families in the area face the same danger. everyone must work together to solve the problem permanently. Samuel, at 14, understands the implications immediately. We're going to hunt them down, aren't we, Papa? We're going to make sure they can never threaten another family, you confirm. That's what men do when their homes and children are threatened. Mary, at 11, asks the question that cuts to the heart of frontier morality. Is it right to kill people, even bad people? Sarah answers before you can speak. It's right to protect your family, sweetheart. When bad people choose to hurt innocent folks, they accept the consequences of their choices. This harsh education in frontier justice isn't cruelty toward children. It's preparation for a world where moral clarity often means the difference between survival and victimization. Children who understand the realities of violence and justice are better equipped to make the decisions that keep them alive in dangerous situations. By mid-morning, you've prepared for the day's mission. Fresh ammunition for all weapons, emergency supplies in case the pursuit extends beyond a single day, and detailed instructions for Sarah about securing the cabin during your absence. Rex will accompany you, his tracking abilities essential for following the raiders' trail. Samuel stays behind to help defend the homestead, his marksmanship skills too valuable to risk on a potentially dangerous pursuit. Before departing, you implement additional security measures developed specifically for situations when the primary defenders must leave the cabin vulnerable. Hidden observation posts scattered around your property allow Sarah to monitor approaches without exposing herself. Emergency signal systems enable rapid communication with returning family members. Predetermined rally points provide fallback positions if the cabin itself becomes untenable. These contingency plans represent the most sophisticated aspect of frontier security thinking. The recognition that static defenses, no matter how well designed, are only effective when properly manned. When circumstances force defenders to leave their prepared positions, alternative systems must maintain protection until normal security can be restored. As you saddle your horse and prepare to ride toward the Patterson place, you reflect on the night's events. Your cabin's defenses worked exactly as designed. Your family responded with discipline and coordination that turned a potentially fatal surprise attack into a manageable confrontation. But the real test of frontier security systems isn't just surviving individual attacks. It's building the community relationships and collective response capabilities that prevent future attacks from occurring. Tonight's successful defense was just the beginning of a longer campaign that will determine whether your family can continue living safely in this remote location. The morning sun climbs higher as you mount your horse and begin the ride toward your nearest neighbor. Rex trots alongside, occasionally pausing to investigate scents left by the raiders' passage. The trail is clear and fresh, leading northeast toward the river crossing where other criminal groups have been spotted in recent months. Behind you, Sarah watches from the cabin doorway until you disappear over the first rise. She knows you might not return for several days, depending on what you discover about the raiders' plans and capabilities, but she also knows the cabin's defenses are strong enough to protect the family during your absence. This confidence in your security systems, earned through months of careful planning and construction, allows you to take the aggressive action necessary to eliminate threats before they can return with overwhelming force. The cabin defenses that kept your family safe last night now free you to hunt down the men who threatened them. The wheel of frontier justice begins another revolution as you follow the raiders' trail toward whatever confrontation awaits in the wilderness ahead. The trail leads northeast for 3 hours, winding through tall grass and across shallow creek beds where the raiders' horses left clear impressions in the soft earth. Rex follows the scent with methodical precision, his nose reading a story written in disturbed ground and foreign smells that your human senses can barely detect. At the Patterson place, you find Martha working in her vegetable garden, a rifle propped against the fence post within arm's reach. She looks up as you approach, her face showing the wariness that's become common among frontier women since her husband's death 3 weeks ago. "Thomas," she calls out, straightening from her work. "You're out early today." "Had visitors last night," you reply, dismounting near her garden gate. "Professional raiders, 5 or 6 of them. They'll be back with friends." Martha's expression hardens. At 35, she's learned to process threats quickly and make decisions without hesitation. "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe a week if we're lucky. They're scouting the area, learning our routines, counting our weapons." You gesture toward the northeast. "Trail leads toward Willow Creek. Same direction those horse thieves went last month." She nods grimly. "Samuel Morrison rode through yesterday. Said he found tracks near his south pasture. 8 horses, maybe more, heading toward the old trapper's camp by the river. This intelligence confirms your suspicions. The raiders aren't operating randomly. They're using established camps, coordinating their activities, treating this entire region like their personal hunting ground. Individual families defending isolated cabins won't solve this problem. It requires the kind of organized response that built this territory in the first place. I'm riding to Morrison's place, then gathering the other men," you tell Martha. "We'll meet at the creek crossing tonight, follow their trail while it's fresh. Can you get word to the families east of here?" "Already planned on it," she replies, shouldering her rifle with practiced ease. "Soon as you rode up, I knew this day would come. Been preparing Sarah Wilson and her boys. Told them what to watch for. This is how frontier communities survive threats that would overwhelm individual families. Information networks that span vast distances, early warning systems that give isolated homesteads precious time to prepare, and the absolute certainty that an attack on one family constitutes an attack on all. You remount your horse, touching your hat brim in respectful farewell. Tell your boy to keep that rifle close. These aren't desperate drifters looking for food. They're predators who've made killing their profession. The ride to Morrison's homestead takes another 2 hours, following wagon tracks that serve as the closest thing to roads in this untamed country. Sam Morrison is working on his cabin roof when you arrive, replacing shingles damaged by last week's hailstorm. He climbs down as you approach, reading trouble in your posture before you speak a word. "Raiders," you say without preamble, "hit my place last night. Professional group. military training. Martha said you found tracks near your south pasture. Sam's weathered face grows serious. At 42, he's been on the frontier longer than most, survived the Indian troubles of the 30s, lost his first cabin to fire, rebuilt everything twice. His judgment carries weight in the scattered community of homesteaders. 8 horses, like I told Martha, he confirms. But there's more. Found a cold fire pit in the timber near Willow Creek yesterday, big enough for 12 men. They've been camping there regular, probably watching all our places. The intelligence picture becomes clearer with each piece of information. This isn't a random raid by desperate criminals. It's a systematic campaign by organized predators who've identified your entire region as profitable hunting territory. They know your routines, your defenses, your family compositions. Last night's attack on your cabin was reconnaissance, testing your preparedness before committing to a major assault. How many men can we muster, you ask, though you already know the approximate answer. Depends how far we spread the word, Sam replies, considering the scattered homesteads within riding distance. Close neighbors, maybe 8 or 10 fighting men. If we send riders to the creek settlement and beyond, could be 15 or 20. But that takes time we might not have. Time versus numbers, the eternal calculation of frontier warfare. Every hour spent gathering additional men gives the raiders more opportunity to strike vulnerable targets or escape the region entirely. But attacking a well-armed criminal camp with insufficient force could result in disaster for the entire community. Start with close neighbors, you decide. Men who can be ready to ride tonight. We'll track them to their camp, assess their numbers and weapons, then decide whether to attack immediately or gather reinforcements. Sam nods approvingly. Smart thinking. Better to know what we're facing before we commit to battle. He gestures toward his cabin. Mary's got coffee on the stove. Come inside while I get my gear ready. The Morrison cabin reflects years of frontier experience and gradual improvement. Thick log walls chinked with clay and horsehair, multiple gun ports covering all approaches, reinforced door and shutters that could withstand considerable force. But more importantly, it shows the touches that distinguish a temporary shelter from a permanent home. Hand-carved furniture, a stone fireplace built with careful craftsmanship. Windows fitted with actual glass panes traded from a merchant train. Mary Morrison greets you with the efficient hospitality of a frontier woman who understands that social visits often carry life and death implications. Hot coffee, fresh bread, and information shared quickly while men prepare for dangerous work. Sarah Patterson stopped by this morning, she tells you, while Sam collects his ammunition and weapons. Said there's been strange tracks around her place, too. Men watching from the timber, horses moving at night. We've all been feeling it, that sense of being hunted. This psychological pressure represents another weapon in the raider's arsenal. Fear that builds gradually, uncertainty that wears down defensive vigilance. The constant stress of knowing predators are circling just beyond sight. Professional criminals understand that frightened families make mistakes, abandon security procedures, sometimes flee their homesteads entirely rather than face continued threats. But they've underestimated the psychological resilience that frontier life develops. Families who've survived winters that kill the unprepared, floods that wash away years of work, droughts that destroy entire harvests, don't break easily under human pressure. Hardship forges strength, and these settlers have been forged by years of hardship. Sam emerges from his cabin carrying a rifle that's seen considerable use, a pistol thrust through his belt, and a possible bag containing ammunition and emergency supplies. His movements are economical, purposeful, betraying no anxiety about the coming confrontation. John Henderson said he'd meet us at the Old Oak by sunset, Sam reports. His boy will ride to the Wilson place, get word to anyone else within range. Figure we'll have 6 or 8 men ready to track these raiders tonight. 6 or 8 men against a criminal band of unknown size, operating from a fortified camp in familiar territory. The odds aren't favorable, but frontier justice operates by different mathematics than civilized warfare. Determined men fighting for their family's survival possess advantages that can't be measured in simple numerical terms. And as you rest safely in your modern home tonight, protected by locks and lights and sirens that would seem like magic to the Mackenzie family, remember this: the security you take for granted was built on the foundation of families who created protection from nothing but raw determination and ingenuity. Who understood that true safety doesn't come from hoping threats will pass you by, but from making yourself too dangerous to attack in the first place? The frontier may be gone, but its lessons remain. Sometimes the best defense isn't just keeping danger out, but making sure it never wants to come in at all.